I'm Mike Costello, and I'm here with Dr. Iris Freelander, and today we'd like to talk to you about the limitless potential that you have. Isn't it wonderful that we as human beings and spiritual beings have limitless potential?
Yes, indeed it is, and most of us don't realize that. And when I was leading a meditation group, I said, tonight we're going to exercise our immensity consciousness. And everyone laughed really hard. But you know, it's true. It helps us if we deliberately exercise our immensity consciousness or realize our own potential, because we sell ourselves short, don't we?
Very, very often. And of course, one of the things that we do so often is we, speaking about people in general, not you and I,
Collectively.
but we think so often of ourselves as limited beings. We think we have limited intelligence and limited capabilities and limited resources and limited opportunities, when in fact, the absolute opposite is true. And of course, we can always point to so many people who start out with little and create much. And it really doesn't have to do with education or with background or even with the resources that we're given in our childhood and in our early life. It's more a resilience of inner being that creates the limitlessness of our potential. And I think that those who believe and realize the limitless capabilities that each individual has really are the ones that are able to stretch out into those areas.
That's true. And you know, we hear a lot of talk today about the tribe, the family, how we're influenced. We're each influenced by our tribe, our family, the people around us. And we know that that's true. We've seen it happen in our own lives and in everyone else's life. Either an individual tries really hard to get away from that so they can be their own person and get on with their life in an individual way, so they're not just doing what is expected of them by their immediate family or surroundings. And so it's a wonderful thing when people have the courage of their own convictions to get away and be on their own. And so we have to, our listeners might review their own lives and see, are they influenced by the people around them who limit them? Because very often individuals will say, meaning collective family, we don't do it that way, or we have never, and organizations does that too, to a very disconcerting degree. But when people limit themselves and limit their families, and we know it happens, I've observed that over the years, and sometimes an individual will just have to get away from their own family. I don't mean break contact totally, but live in a different area so that they're free to be themselves and to reach their own potential. And then I don't think any of us ever reach truly our own potential because it's so limitless.
That's absolutely true. And I think this issue of limits are placed upon us early in life. And for so many people, I know in our counseling work and in our spiritual work, we come across so many people who have come to believe that they're limited because they've been told so or because they believe so. And we all know, and especially in New Thought metaphysics, that our circumstances and situations may be whatever they are, and that our life experience is whatever it is. But the way in which we think and respond to it is really the determining factor. And when we talk about limitless potential, we're talking about the limitless potential that we have in the form of ideation or ideas and creativity and mind expansion, if you will. And so we really need to understand that no matter what the limiting condition that we're experiencing at the moment, that there is limitless potential. And of course, we can talk about that in all aspects of life. We can look at it in terms of just substance or resources. How so many people believe that their financial resources are limited because this is all I have. But then all we have to do is to understand the principles of prosperity and abundance to realize, and they're simple principles that can be taught and can be demonstrated, that allow people to develop a prosperity consciousness or an abundance consciousness. We don't spend a lot of time on that, and we don't do it for good reason, because we think that there are many other aspects of our being that need to have our attention. And so that while prosperity and abundance are an example, we could really look at the limitlessness of opportunities that we have in our lives and the limitlessness that we have also. Maybe later in the program we can talk about the limitless capability and capacity that we have to do good. and to love other people. And that's really one of the limiting factors that we have. We all limit ourselves so often to the fact that we're able to love or have affection or do good for a certain number of people, and certainly it's easy for us to do good to those whom we feel close. But the fact is that we have tremendous opportunities for greater good in the larger circle of humanity and in the larger circle of the human family in which we find ourselves, all of us.
Yes, and when we're comfortable within ourselves, then everything else falls into place, and we're able then to do the work that we set out to do, and to receive a pay for that in the way we would like to be. So it all goes together. It's a form of balance, isn't it?
It is. And that balancing is really tremendously important as we look at our lives, because we don't want to be too limited, and we want to allow ourselves to understand that when circumstances and situations present themselves, that we do have options, and that those options create opportunities for us, and those opportunities in many cases are limitless. Although if we stretch to the thought of limitless opportunities, sometimes that's a little bit far for many people to go, at least in the initial stages. You touched on something just a few moments ago, and that was really looking at ourselves. And we talk a lot about that in this program and also in our work, about the value of looking at how it is that each of us, this introspection and self-examination of how it is we respond to the circumstances and situations of life. And if people have a limited consciousness or a limited mind capacity, it's not limited mind, but if they see themselves as being limited in any aspect of their lives, that's a dynamic of mind that can be addressed and that can be modified and can be changed.
Yes, and everyone should know that they can change. And as we were saying earlier on, people limit themselves because they think, because their families, their surroundings, the people in their surroundings limit them. And so sometimes they have to get away from that. And I was just thinking, sometimes that happens in families. I've seen it happen when I grew up, from where I grew up. And also it happens in ethnic groups. They will hold each other to certain limits. And they say, well, they're getting uppity, or they make snide remarks about a person who seems to be reaching out in any way, financially or socially or whatever, when the person is really just reaching for their own potential. But then the people around them try and make them feel uncomfortable, because they say you're like going beyond your means, or going beyond who you are, your own surroundings, which means you're stepping out of that mold we put you in. And so we need to step out of that mold very often. Sometimes we have to do it deliberately, and other times it's just an unconscious move. And it's been a very good thing, and that people have gone to various parts of the country to live. They've not stayed in the same environment forever. And of course, that happened after World War I, it happened after World War II. So we can see how certain things that happen that we think are negatives in our lives really have a far-reaching potential for for everyone, because it brings us into a new type of environment.
And that newness of life is so important. And I think so many times in our lives, just as you were saying, family or our relationship or our circle of friends limit us and say, this is the way that we do it. And I was talking to someone just recently who was mentioning that he was going to be the first person in his family to graduate from university. And I thought, what a wonderful thing to have happen for that individual, but also for that family and for the extended family, not only of the immediate family, but of his friends, to experience and see that. And so often when we deal with young people, or we deal with people early in life, it would be magnificent if they could see the role models of individuals who are able to do things that were thought to be impossible or thought to be out of the reach of what they could do. And of course, one of the magnificent things that we have here in the West, and certainly in the United States and in a capitalist society, although we're not going to get into those issues, but is this wonderful ability to have mobility and to have opportunities and to do things that in other cultures and in other parts of the world may not be possible. And so breaking out of that mold is very definitely important. But then it's also important that if people feel comfortable in that mold and in that family circle and they're able to express their potential, that they stay there. And, you know, we're not talking about breaking up
No.
for the sake of breaking up family units or relationships, but we are talking about looking at one's life and one's dynamic and deciding whether it is limiting and whether it is a dynamic that needs to be addressed and needs to be changed. And of course, on the spiritual standpoint, we see a lot of people who are very limited. And we see a lot of aspects of spirituality that are limiting, and certainly we don't want to get into calling anything good or bad, but when we look at spirituality, and of course the wonderful thing about what we teach and what we do is we take mind, body, and spirit, we put them together and take this very important reality of the fact that we are triune beings. We are mind, we are body, and we're spirit. And the magnificent thing that's happening in the spiritual movement, in the spiritual realm, across denominational and faith lines and across tradition lines today, is this dynamic where we're seeing people doing brand new things and experiencing magnificent things in terms of sharing other traditions and drawing upon those traditions and becoming richer in their faith and in their spiritual life because of it.
Yes, and a good example of that would be the educational workshops we have at our church monthly, where we study other beliefs and other practices. And that's very broadening because we can always appreciate our own even more, plus we can add to, because it's all the same. I mean, ultimately, the bottom line is always the same. So, and we can see how that is true. But it also adds richly to those who attend those workshops, because to know about other religious beliefs, to me, is one of the most enriching experiences of all life. Don't you think so?
Absolutely. And it goes to the heart of embracing diversity and celebrating diversity, which has to do with not only spirituality, but we're seeing it within cultures and within across socioeconomic lines in today's environment, and it's very exciting. And of course, one of the things that's happening is, you know, we talk about the fact that consciousness is speeding up and thought is speeding up, but we also have the dynamic of all of the information that's so available. And through that information, we're able to see the diversity and see the differences that we have, and to celebrate and allow ourselves the ability not to change other people, but to observe other people and out of that see the limitless potential, so we can choose and make our decisions and make decisions to perhaps make a change in our life and make a change in the direction of our life experience.
Yes, and to appreciate what the difference is, and to appreciate them and then incorporate them in that individual life. And that's one of the most enriching of all aspects of life, isn't it?
Absolutely. And this program is about enriching, and we'd like to pause at this point in the program and offer you the opportunity to receive some literature at home so that you can continue to study the ideas and concepts that we're sharing with you in the program.
We would like to offer you the opportunity to receive one of these free booklets to further your understanding of the new thought message of confident living. Each month we will feature a different booklet, which will be mailed to you free and postage paid. Simply address your request to Confident Living at P.O. Box 7726, Long Beach, California, 90807.
Celebrating diversity is something that is new to some people, because I think in so many instances we, until recent times, have been very divided in politics, in religion, in socioeconomic, along socioeconomic lines, and that coming together, just as we were talking before the break, enriches our lives and creates more of this limitless potential of thought that we were touching on. And we've, in the early part of the program, talked about certain kinds of limitless potential, but the limitless potential of mind is an exciting thing, isn't it? Because our minds have such capacity to change, and yet so many times we don't want to change our minds. I heard someone say we change all kinds of things. We change our clothes, and we change light bulbs, and we change things, but we don't always change our way of thinking. And we do need to change our minds from time to time. And even those things that we believe so firmly at certain points in time in our lives are sometimes things that need to be changed. And our values need to change. And that's not to say that that this is a valueless society, but it is to say that everything is subject to change because of the limitless potential and the potential that we have to reconceptualize, reinvent life itself and our perception of life and our relationship with others and our relationship with God.
Yes, and it's becoming more and more evident because we have greater information available to us that it's evident that truth is can be interpreted in various ways. It's not just one thing. It can be interpreted in various ways, and it's very evident that we need to have a broad outlook on life. And what would be very true and very essential in one circumstance might not be in another. It's not all black or white.
Mm-hmm.
And when you were speaking, I was thinking it's just exciting that in the political parties, it seems to me, I've lived a long time, and it seems to me that people used to be either Democrat or Republican. There wasn't much else. And now there are other groups. And also, the Democrats and Republicans don't just stick right to the party line necessarily as they once did. Don't you think that's true?
It's absolutely true. We see it in politics,
Yeah.
we see it in economics, we see it in religion, and so we see it in all aspects of life. And that openness to diversity, and it is beyond tolerance. You know, we used to talk a lot about tolerance, but tolerance only takes us so far. But if we go beyond tolerance to the reality that we have so many, many, many opportunities to look at different ways of thinking and different ways of life, and not to tolerate them, but to celebrate them.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that we have to be a part of it as much as we have to broaden our concepts and ideas. And you said that word just a few minutes ago, and it just jumped right out at me, because we do create a limitlessness in ourselves when we broaden our way of thinking about life and broaden our way of thinking about all of life and its experiences.
Yes, and we can appreciate all the variances and appreciate them and perhaps incorporate some, but just appreciate everything, whatever anyone is offering. And this is what travel is so broadening. And there are people who travel and they just say, if we don't do it this way, and they don't really enjoy their traveling and they don't benefit from it. So and we go through life. Life is a journey. And so we go through life either being closed-minded or being open-minded. And when the more open we are, the more we see the vast potential available to us in all aspects of life. And as we do, and sometimes we have to just remind ourselves, don't we?
We do, absolutely. And we have to continually remind ourselves. And it is a process that we need to go through over and over again. And we need to really be vigilant about this issue of being open-minded and being willing to look at other options and look at other traditions and look at other views and points of view. And that kind of tolerance creates, I think, a very positive and supportive world, as opposed to a world where we have only a limited view of whatever it is we're looking at, and then the expectation that everyone fall in line with that. That's extremely limiting. And so whenever we get into an organization or into a structure, into a family, or into a relationship that is so confining, then I think we need to pause and really look within and decide, is this where I want to be? And is this the kind of environment, both mental and physical and spiritual, that I want to find myself in? And does that limit me? Does it limit my way of thinking, or does it expand my way of thinking? Does it encourage me to think for myself and to grasp the concept of the limitless potential that we have, or is it something that's really being very single focused and much more controlling? And control is the issue. And of course, if we let go of control, then wonderful things begin to happen. And this lack of control is really an exciting aspect of life and an exciting aspect of the mind sciences and spirituality that we find ourselves in today. And opening things up and allowing people to have their own opportunities to expand their way of thinking, change their way of thinking, and to grasp and grab hold of the limitless opportunities that they have.
Yes, and when we do, then we're adding much more to the community, to the world, and we're adding just by our very energy. We're adding in that way, and there are many groups and many organizations available for whoever wants to join them. But no organization can be all things to all people. So I think we've, in a sense, in our society, gone too far in trying to make everything available to everyone. And I'm thinking of fraternal organizations that where the men like to have their own organization and not have women involved. And I know of different groups where the women are crowding to get in those groups. Well, I wouldn't want to be in a group where the men want to be alone because I think it's good. And vice versa. There needs to be women's groups and sororities and women's groups in various ways, in guilds and organization. And it helps us then to see the other viewpoint because they're able to go farther in that way in their own right. And then when we come together, it's just like a couple, when a couple lives in a certain world during the day, and then the other person lives in a certain other world during the day, and they come together in the evening and add richly to each other's lives. Well, that same principle would be true. So we can stretch our immensity consciousness by being true to whatever is within us and not trying too hard to be all things to all people or to be a part of every organization, and let it be.
And we need to do that. We need to really, again, look at ourselves and look at our lives. And one of the things that I know you do in counseling and I do as well is we encourage people to ask themselves whether they're happy and whether their life is the way they want it to be. And if their life is not the way they want it to be, then change.
Exactly.
And this ability to change is something that's always available to us. And the limitlessness of change and the ability that we have to change both in ways that we choose and in ways that we would never choose enrich our lives so greatly and so immensely.
Yes, and it's very inspiring to see children play because they're if they're left alone, they're so unself-conscious. And they play with one toy for a bit, and then they go over and play with something else, and they just take full joy in whatever they're doing, but they don't have to stay with everything forever. And that would be, to me, an analogy of an adult life, that we don't have to do everything all the time. We can do certain things, and we have lots of things open to us and available, sports, entertainment, all aspects of life. And the study that's available, the means of study that's available to us today is almost mind-boggling. But sometimes we just stay on this same rut and along the same path when so much more is available to us. And those people, I think, who are happiest and add to the lives of others most fully are the ones who look out at all the different aspects of life, not necessarily participating in everything, but being aware of it and appreciative. And appreciation goes a long way, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Appreciation of life, appreciation of what we have, and appreciation for other people, and appreciation of other people's right to be where they are in life. And that limitless consciousness that we're talking about is something that we really have to allow others to find for themselves as well. And that's sometimes difficult. And so often in our work, we try to help people to grasp the concepts, and that's exactly what we do. We help them to grasp the concepts, but whether they choose to grasp them or whether they choose to change their lives, whether they choose to participate in life fully with its limitless potential is a decision that they have to make, and everyone has to make their own decisions in life. And unfortunately, some people it's going to take a long time before they really understand their limitless potential. And of course, one of the things that we know, of course, we believe in a strong and magnificent afterlife, and so we know that when we close our eyes in this life and open them in the next, we'll understand the limitlessness of and the immensity of our own abilities and our own capacities. But wouldn't it be wonderful to come to know that here in this life experience when we could share it with other people?
Yes, and the way we do that is just not limit ourselves in any way, and not limit others, but give them a hand up, at least a word of encouragement if they want to try something new and different, and to encourage the fact that yes, many of us are different but equally valuable, and to really truly appreciate the work, not just artwork and music, but everything of the differences, the diversity in life. And to hold someone back is really very criminal. When you said we close our eyes and then we're in another dimension, that's a very exciting thought, isn't it? That what is available on the inner planes of being is available to us here if we meditate and look for it and see. And we can see far more than most people realize through our prayer meditation, brief prayer, long meditation, and just sensing what's on the inner planes of being. Mm-hmm. And then when we go over wide awake, and that's a very exciting thought, that we don't just have to we don't, it's never just nothing. There's always an immense amount of life. Mm-hmm. On the inner planes as well as there is here.
And that dynamic on the inner plane or on the spiritual side of life is supporting us in the physical life. Mm-hmm. And so what we teach, of course, in metaphysics and New Thought, and very often we talk about divine mind or the mind of God or infinite intelligence or whatever else other traditions have names for it. But what we talk about and teach is that if we can unite our mind with divine mind or the creative mind of God, then we have the limitless potential of the answers, the direction, the guidance to every circumstance and situation that we'll ever need. And the wonder of that is just mind-boggling, isn't it? Because once we connect with divine mind, and there's nothing mystical or magical about that, because all we have to do is center ourselves in that truth and reality, allow our consciousness and our conscious mind to make union with that infinite intelligence. And we can do it through prayer and meditation and through a variety of spiritual techniques, but we can also get so very good at it that we're able to access it in our daily lives in a fully conscious state. And when that happens, then we're able to connect our mind with divine mind and be guided and directed in ways that we would never have imagined. And of course, we know, because we demonstrate this and teach it all the time, if we just step out of the way, so to speak, and allow the presence and the power to guide us and direct us, then we'll simply be opened up and guided to do and say and be and do and participate in life in the fullest and most magnificent ways.
Yes, and life has been so much more fulfilling, and we feel that yes, we're accomplishing what we came here to accomplish, and we need to remember that God gave mankind free will, and so to take away from that free will would be a great error of thought.
Absolutely.
We can never do that.
And we don't want to take away anyone's free will. And so we're sharing these ideas and concepts, and we hope that they're empowering and that they're strengthening and that they give to our viewers the opportunity to understand fully and completely that you have limitless potential, and you have limitless potential because of who you are. And it has nothing to do with where you came from. It has nothing to do with your faith tradition. It has everything to do with the reality that you are a perfect and magnificent being, both mind, body, and spirit, as you are. And we hope the information that we've been sharing with you is useful, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Mike and Iris would like to extend a cordial invitation for you to join them this Sunday morning at 11 a.m. for our weekly celebration service at the beautiful Seaport Marina Hotel at the corner of Pacific Coast Highway and 2nd Street, adjacent to the Marina Pacifica and Marketplace shopping centers. There will be a guided meditation, prayers, spirited music, and a dynamic, life-changing New Thought message. Please join us this Sunday. You will be warmly welcomed into the company of like-minded, positive, and uplifting people. And remember, whatever your dream, whatever your vision, you can attain it through confident living.